For most of human history, the ocean has been a place we don't fully control. You can stand on a beach, look out at the water, and everything seems calm. But a few meters below the surface, your visibility drops. A few meters more, and you're effectively blind. And in that environment, size becomes invisible. A modern great white shark can reach around 6 meters, or about 20 feet in length. That alone is enough to change how people behave in the water. It's enough to keep people close to shore, enough to make open water feel uncomfortable. Now, scale that up. Estimates suggest Megalodon could reach lengths of 15 to 20 meters, roughly 50 to 65 feet. Some analyses push that ceiling higher. A 2025 study based on fossilized vertebral columns places the largest possible estimate at around 24 meters, close to 80 feet. That's not just larger, that's an animal several times heavier, with a mouth wide enough to engulf large prey in a single bite. The common image is simple: a giant version of a great white, a bigger, more dangerous shark. But that assumption doesn't really hold, because when an animal reaches that scale, it stops behaving like a scaled-up version of something smaller. Everything changes. Its metabolism, its hunting strategy, its role in the ecosystem. And that creates a problem, because we don't have a living reference. No modern predator operates at that exact scale in the same way. No complete fossil skeleton exists to confirm its body structure, and most of what we know comes from teeth. So we're left with fragments. And from those fragments, we're trying to reconstruct not just an animal, but an entire way of life. How fast could it swim? What did it actually hunt? Did it rely on ambush or endurance? And what kind of ocean could support something this large? Because an animal like this doesn't just exist on its own. It shapes everything around it. Before we get to the world, we need to understand why we know so little about the animal itself. And the answer is stranger than you'd expect. Sharks are built differently from most large predators. Mammals have bones, dinosaurs had bones, even fish have bones. Sharks instead have cartilage, not just soft cartilage in places, their entire skeleton. Every structural element that holds the body together is made of the same flexible, lightweight material you have in your nose and ears. This was an evolutionary decision made hundreds of millions of years ago, and it worked brilliantly. Cartilage is lighter than bone, which makes a large shark easier to keep buoyant. It's flexible, which helps the body absorb stress during high-force movements. But cartilage has one major flaw: it doesn't fossilize. When a shark dies and sinks, the soft tissue goes first. Muscle, fat, organs. Within weeks, gone. But then the cartilage follows. The spine, the jaws, the fins, all of it rots. What survives is only what's hard enough to resist decomposition: the teeth. And here's where it gets interesting. A shark doesn't just have one set of teeth. Over its entire life, Megalodon would have produced roughly 40,000 of them, constantly replacing them, row after row, the way modern sharks still do today. Which means everywhere it swam, it left teeth behind, buried in sediment, slowly replaced by minerals, scattered across ocean floors around the world. That's why we have so many teeth and nothing else. And it's also why reconstructing the animal requires inference. Paleontologists use the proportions of modern sharks to estimate body length from tooth size, jaw curvature to estimate mouth width, and bite marks left on fossilized whale bones, deep parallel gouges that match Megalodon tooth spacing to understand how it actually fed. Those bite marks tell us something important. This was not a delicate predator. The bite force estimates for Megalodon sit at around 180,000 newtons at maximum. Let me put that in terms that actually land. A great white shark bites with roughly 18,000 newtons, already enough to cut through bone. Megalodon's bite was estimated to be 10 times stronger. For comparison, if you wanted to experience that kind of force through pressure alone, it would be roughly equivalent to having 3 full-grown African elephants standing on a single point. That force wasn't accidental. It wasn't just a consequence of being large. It was a precision tool. Megalodon's teeth weren't just big. They were serrated along both edges, designed specifically to slice through dense material. When paleontologists examine fossilized whale bones from this period, they find impact fractures and gouge marks consistent with a predator targeting the ribcage directly. Not biting around a whale, biting through it. This suggests Megalodon wasn't just large enough to hunt big prey. It had specifically evolved to disable large prey as quickly as possible. Which makes sense when you understand the cost of failure, because Megalodon, unlike most modern sharks, appears to have been warm-blooded, or at minimum, capable of maintaining a higher body temperature than the surrounding water. And warm-blooded predators burn through energy at an extraordinary rate. Estimates suggest that to sustain its body, Megalodon needed to consume roughly 100,000 calories every single day, about 50 times what an adult human burns. Think about what that means for a moment. Every day it didn't eat, it was burning through its reserves. Every hunt that failed had a real cost. And an animal that large, in an ocean that was always changing, could not afford many failures. This single biological fact, that its body demanded constant, massive amounts of food, becomes the thread that eventually unravels the whole story. But here's something most people get wrong about Megalodon. They assume it's a direct ancestor of the great white shark, that if you trace the great white's family tree back far enough, you eventually get to Megalodon. Well, that's not what happened. Megalodon and the great white are about as closely related as a dog and a cat. They share a very distant common ancestor, an early shark lineage that diverged into 2 separate families tens of millions of years ago. Megalodon belonged to a group called the Odontidae, giant, broad-toothed sharks that grew to enormous size. The great white belongs to the Lamnidae, a different family entirely, which includes mako sharks and salmon sharks. Here's what's interesting about this split. When these 2 lineages diverged,